If you have said to yourself, I should write that, or if someone has said to you, you should write that, then I'm talking to you because you need to write. And that's why you're tuned in to yWrite. Hi, welcome to yWrite. I'm your host, Angela Grout, and I'm so glad that you're getting to tune in to another episode today of yWrite to find out why people are writing so that you can figure out how you should be writing your story too. Today, we're going to talk about writing on social media. So this is a kind of a platform that everybody seems to be dabbling in. And if you are an author, this is going to be especially important for you because we're going to talk to a specialist from Morningbird Media. I have in studio today Robyn Lee Miller. And let me tell you about Robyn Lee Miller. She is the founder of Morningbird Media. And her company has gotten the Super 60 Award. They were the 2024 Best of the Valley Digital Media Agency winners. In 2025, this year, they were the Best of the Valley Digital Media Agency finalists, and they were the Best of the Valley Social Media Expert winners. So she is definitely an expert when it comes to how to talk on Facebook and all of the social media accounts. She specializes in maintaining digital relationships through social media platforms. She is a mom and an actress, and she's a professor at Western New England University. And, she's also a media specialist and a biochemist. Which I just have to throw that in there because I think it's hilarious. So I want to introduce Robyn Lee Miller.
Thank you for having me, Angela.
Robyn, it's great. And I didn't even mention you were on the board for the Pioneer Valley Conference for Women, which I just got to attend, which was wonderful.
Thank you.
It's like just amazing how you founded this company and you manage all these different social media accounts for so many different businesses, from large businesses to individual lawyers to all sorts of things. But you didn't wake up in the morning when you were a child and say, I'm going to be a social media expert. You said you were going to be a biochemist. So what does that degree have to do with what you're doing?
Things change,
yes.
I suppose. I've always had two loves, and they were science and they were the arts.
Okay, well, computer science. Yes, I get it.
Right. So when I was younger, I do come from an Asian American family, and they're very big on science and
math.
Medical and math and all those things. And I was like, it makes more sense to go into science. And I had these two wonderful high school teachers. One was in graphics, and the other was my biology teacher. And she was like, go for science. And the other one was like, no, go for graphics. You're the yearbook editor, blah, 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 blah. So finally I said, okay, I'll go for science. And I went for science, and I got a molecular biology and biochemistry degree, a chemistry minor, a biotechnology degree, and then I was just like, what do I do next?
Yeah.
They don't teach you how to get into the workplace.
Yeah, they teach you. They just teach you how to do things. They don't teach you how to get a job.
So it was very technical, and I was like, now what? I'm a 21-year-old, unconfident, kind of coming out of this educational program, thinking to myself, what do I do, right? I mean, most of them were going into academia, they were going into PhD programs, medical school, and they had a more of an educational path in front of them. For myself, I was like, well, I'm not in a position to really continue my education, but how do I get a job in this field?
Yeah.
And I had no clue how to do it. I wasn't confident enough to even apply. I had worked a little bit in genetics labs.
That's shocking to me because you are so confident. You are such a confident woman.
All the biotech firms were in Boston, and I was like, do I want to relocate and stuff? And I'd spent some time within the university working in genetics labs and working on some sequencing and stuff. And it was just so quiet. It was a little bit too isolating for me, and I thought, my goodness, I talk way too much to sit in this lab alone by myself.
Do you know I have an accounting degree? And I went to work for Smith & Wesson, and I'm in the accounting department. I'm like, I can't sit behind this desk all day. I need to be moving. I need to be talking.
Yeah, and I loved what I was doing, but I also was just like, I don't know if this is for me. And at the time, I just wasn't educated enough to know that there were pharmaceutical sales jobs or there were other mediums that involved interaction with people. And when I left college, I just didn't know where to go. And you know what? When the universe talks, you listen, right? And I ended up at this radio station, and I was like, oh my God. They're like, well, we're looking for a receptionist. You could be a receptionist. And I was like, that's not what I went to school for. Like, I don't know if I could do this. And they was like, all right, well, you know what? I'll give it a try. What's the worst that can happen? And I got hired in promotions. And then as I eventually had more exposure in the radio station, I was doing promotions. I was doing events. I worked my way into the on-air talent pool. And then I was running the weekend shows. And I was doing this new blog when videos and traditional media merged, and I was doing Robyn's reviews.
I love Robyn's reviews.
And I got to do a food blog, and it was so exciting to merge those two mediums together, and that's where the intersection of traditional and digital started for us in the mid-2000s-ish, and they were like, well, you're the young one, can't you run our Facebook page?
Of course.
All right, let's do it. And that's where I started getting more exposure and getting more involved in marketing, and from that point, it became what it was.
So we're glad that you listen to the universe. I mean, and the universe they provide these opportunities that sometimes we don't know why we're jumping into them, and then it just evolves.
Yes.
It definitely evolves. So it's just that, like, take that leap of faith and, find out what you're really made from and for.
And it was perfect.
Now, so since you started working at the radio station and kind of but got into their Facebook stuff, how have you seen social media change? And it's so important because nowadays it's almost like a popularity contest, to get your followers, to get your likes, to try to draw attention to your product. For me, I'm trying to draw attention to the products for people, not necessarily the people behind them. I don't know.
It's a curious way to go about it, right? Because there's a lot of strategy involved. When I first began or introduced myself or got involved with Facebook, it was only for college students and above, so you had to have an EDU address, and it was very limited in the pool that it served. As they eventually realized that this was like a money-making machine, it got opened up to anybody 13 plus. With any type of email address, it was open to the public.
I never realized it was just EDU, but that makes sense.
Yep, and it was only college because as Zuckerberg created it, he was at Harvard. They were only doing it to be within their academia. So it was only meant for college kids at the time. And then it became this cash cow, and they're like, oh, we can change the face of advertising and the world. Exactly. And that's kind of how everybody ended up connected. I mean, MySpace was there first, but
MySpace
can make it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's so interesting to me, and it's so frustrating to me how Facebook has become like the newspaper of the morning, and whether it's Facebook or LinkedIn or
Twitter X.
I was going to say Twitter, but X or whatever, or Blue Sky. I don't know. There's so many different ones out there. Like, you're going there and, not only to connect with your friends and family, but you're getting your news from it. You're getting, it's got these algorithms in it that all of a sudden know what you're looking for because it reads your mind. Good. Like, what is this?
It is amazing how the algorithm works and how we're constantly trying to find ways to work with it instead of against it. And it also depends too on like whom your audience is. And I find for myself, like my age demo, I am kind of that middle-aged mom. I love Facebook. My family is there. My friends are there. I receive a lot of advertising that suits me on Facebook. So I find myself doom scrolling over there. Whereas my husband, is entering his 50s. He's more visual. He likes to receive his news from TikTok. So he receives a lot of news on TikTok, and the type of thing that he's looking for is more in video form and a visual there. So it just depends on what the person gravitates toward. But when we're talking in terms of authors and having your social media presence out there, I mean, no matter where you are, like start somewhere. I know it's perfection leads to procrastination because you don't want it out there. I'm not ready yet.
True.
I'm not ready.
I love that. Perfection leads to procrastination.
And I'd rather just have something out there that is still follows my brand guidelines, and it may not be perfection, but it still checks off the boxes in terms of what it is I'm trying to put out there. I'd rather have something than nothing, and then I perfect my message, because you do need the audience engagement to know what they think is interesting to them. We might think, oh, this is something that I have to put out to my audience and they're going to love it and whatever, but you may not be your ideal audience.
Right.
So in that case, you have to think about what they engage with. So having their feedback is crucial.
So how do we get those audience? How as an author do you build that audience platform that's outside your friends and family? You know, because there's whole other webs to get to.
Correct. And with that said, it's important to start with your friends and family, though, I'd say, just because they are your best cheerleaders. If they can help you amplify your messaging across whatever platform it is that you choose. Let's just use Facebook for an example, because that's kind of the easiest one to start with, where you don't have a lot of video production value and stuff. You can start getting posts out with static imagery and so on. Having your friends and family back you up and like your posts and interact with them and engage with them is going to help amplify your messaging, because it signals to the algorithm, hey, this post might be interesting to people, so we're going to serve it to more people. So when we talk about organic reach, having them, hey guys, I'm going to put out this post, tonight and tomorrow. Can you go and like it, interact with it? I'm just letting you know that I'm getting it out there because I need.
So you're sharing that privately with them. Yeah,
and you're kind of prepping them for that, right? And then you're getting ready to post it onto Facebook, because it's not enough to simply just post anymore. Everybody thinks, oh, well, I post on my page. I mean, what more do I need to do?
Well, I mean, that's even like authors who publish, through Amazon or something. They're like, oh, I published my book today.
It's a bestseller.
And then they're, going to sit there and wait for the sales. And it's like, no, you have to, everything has to be marketed.
Yeah, and in essence, you have to fuel the fire, right? It doesn't do it itself. It needs a little bit of oxygen. It needs ideal conditions. Like, those are all of the things that you're prepping with your post to like fuel the flame. Yeah. And you have to. Otherwise, it's just going to die, right? It'll just fizzle out and it will become another post in the graveyard of Facebook.
Yeah, because you can be on the front page of the paper one week, and then the next week there's a new person on the front page of the paper, and that's done. That's done.
And it's over. So, like, how can we support that? And even with something like a podcast, as you're doing, there are so many ways to repurpose that content a millionfold, so that you can take that one piece of content and turn it into several pieces, because we know that it is a daunting task, or like we're trying to have our full-time jobs and deal with our families. Like, there's just only so many hours in a day. So how can you use that one piece of content to turn into multiple pieces of content, and then how do you amplify from there? So if you have the podcast, you and this is off on a tangent a little bit, but if you have the podcast, you can multiply it into several forms of content, whereas like, all right, you're prepping for that one. Hey guys, we're dropping a new content in another week. It's going to tease this particular show. Oh, we're gonna have Robyn on, and we're gonna talk about blah blah blah. So like, make sure to tune in live, or if it's not live, then make sure to tune in when it drops. Right.
Because so you have your little plugs to kind of.
You've got your way to ease into it, and then you get ready to drop. All right, so now we're gonna drop. We're dropping tomorrow. Here's the full episode, right? But then you're taking those smaller pieces from the episode, and there's great ways to do that now with certain AI softwares and stuff that will pull clips for you.
And this is things that Morning Bird Media offers.
Hey.
So let's get into Morning Bird Media. Yeah.
So there's a lot of ways now that we can use AI to help with efficiency and saving time. And I know there's a lot of talk, oh, well, aren't you afraid your job's not going to be there? Like, so untrue. I'm
agree.
the one that knows how to use those tools and can help you to save time and energy to do them. And even so, maybe it will all help us save time and money in the long run, right? Because we're able to produce more, we're able to get more content out there, we're able to amplify our messaging even further now with the time that we have. So you've done the podcast now, you've put up the episode, now you have different snippets that you can use on different platforms. Yeah. YouTube Shorts, YouTube.
Right.
You can
that's the thing that can be exhausting for an author, because even like for myself, I'll do the podcast and it's like to edit like this little segment about amplifying your voice, amplifying your message. Like, you want to take that little snippet and then all of a sudden like just make it into a short or whatever,
and pull certain areas.
It's a full-time job, right? But it's a full-time job to be writing. You're trying to finish your books or trying to work your other job and maintain your family and balance all of this.
How to do it all. So you most certainly don't have to reinvent the wheel every time you sit down to think about a social strategy. If you have a podcast, or something of this similar, even a 5-minute video blog, like you can repurpose that. And now, all right, we have the transcript from our podcast. Okay, we can turn that into a blog post. Now that can live on the internet for an extended period of time, forevermore. It will live out there, and we've done the right SEO for it. So we've put in the right keywords, we've said the right things, and now it can have organic ranking within your favorite search platform, Google, Bing, Yahoo, what have you.
So for the SEO, the search engine, you know, in order to get those keywords, you know, for people to, you know, type in, what's the secret for things like that to be able to get into the algorithms?
Ooh, should I give away my secrets? I don't know.
I mean, because I know, like Morning Bird Media, you know, you definitely have some inside information on this.
Sure. I would say things that you could do. There's a lot of softwares out there that do have free versions or like a freemium version, you know, that allow you to at least get your feet wet within that certain software to understand it. So something that is completely free and available to the public, Google Trends. If you use Google Trends, you can see what people are searching for, what keyword threads they're searching for. So not only do you have singular keywords like podcast, you know, but then you have these longer tail keywords and these medium tail keywords. So whatever those are, so now we've got podcast, that's one of our keywords, but we've also got Angela Grout podcast, longer keywords.
Do I need to put those podcast in the keyword search if it's already in the title?
So your title is good. The thing that you would want to make sure about when you're formatting your blog pages is that you're using the proper, it's not just simply a matter of having the text on the page, right? Because you have these H1 headers, you have H2 headers, you have paragraph text. So making sure that those are set up properly is crucial to Google being able to discern what is a headline versus what is paragraph text. So if it's looking for those key points when those little spider bots are crawling your pages, it will be able to determine what is the most important in that page and be able to rank it within the Google search.
So yeah, I mean, that makes sense because, you know, especially if you're, you know, as an author, if you're going to share like a chapter of your book or, you know, something like that, you want to make sure that the heading is in your H1 format. And then, you know, because it sounds like if it's in that, then the little spiders going around are going to know that that's a heading, so that's a keyword. Correct? Am I thinking this right? Bless you.
Ooh, pardon
God bless you.
I should have taken that allergy medicine.
Yeah, that's this time of year.
Say that one more time.
So I'm saying if you have your heading like in the H1 of, you know, the title, the little spider bolts, you know, whatever they're called inside, you know, the computer inside the search engine, it's going to automatically know that that's a title. So you don't have to add that to it. Yeah,
of course. Yeah, it will crawl your website and it looks at it in code, right? It's not going to look at it as 14-point Helvetica font, right? So even if you do it for formatting purposes, just ensure that all of your headers are in the right correct spot, exactly, and that they're labeled as such. So making sure that within your blog editor, whatever website platform you're using, that your H1 is like, if you're doing it for formatting purposes, like, okay, H1 is always going to be 14-point bold Helvetica, and then it's going to follow your brand guidelines, but it also follows that of Google so that it knows how to crawl your website and what to pick from it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm understanding this language. I'm hoping the audience is understanding this language because it definitely can be very confusing. And, you know, this is where, you know, especially if you're doing a blog post on your website or, you know, you're just putting something out on social media, you want to make sure that if someone's going into that search engine on a social media and they're typing in, you know, fictional story, you know, you want your book to pop up, but what's going to make your book pop up as opposed to all these others.
Yeah, and those are two very different ways of going about it. So like Google has its own tracking mechanisms of how it's going to find your information, whereas Facebook is a little bit different. So things that I always recommend for Facebook side, when you're utilizing a social media platform such as this one, many people don't ever change their username. And when you create a Facebook business page, you're automatically applied a URL, right? And it's facebook.com/857654321, right? It's up to you to change that because Facebook doesn't automatically do that, and people don't necessarily realize that. So you've got to go through some settings, and again, we have workshops that show you how to do these things, but it's in the settings where you update your username and you provide a URL for it so that you are facebook.com/yWrite podcast
Right.
or whatever.
At yWrite.
Yeah. But for this one, like you don't, there's no symbols or whatever. So like,
Okay. So, I'm Y-Write on Facebook. That's
so,
what it is.
So they're different
'Cause the
between
yWrite was-
YouTube and so you're going to want to make sure that you have all of the right best practices for each platform, right? So on Facebook, it's not necessarily like you have your Instagram handle, which is your @yWrite or
Right.
and so on, and people can find you that way. But if you don't change it on Facebook, you're not searchable.
How important is it to have multiple platforms?
I would say it depends on your goal.
Okay.
So if you're just getting started, start with one. Start with Facebook, and from there you can attach your Instagram, and that's a very easy thing to connect.
Yeah, that's going to ask. Can you post on one and just have it go to the others?
If it's a meta product, if it is Facebook and Instagram, yes, they have a scheduler together. If you have multiple platforms, then I would recommend a third-party scheduler, and those are like Hootsuite or Sprout Social, Sprinkler. Like there's many out there, and those are paid platforms to use, and you can schedule across multiple platforms and change the copy.
So when people are using your using Morningbird Media to do things like that, do they provide the content to you and you do the scheduling, or do you provide the content and all? Like how much interaction is there with your clients?
It's client dependent. So I would say we are not a one-size-fits-all model.
Yeah.
We've dealt with everybody from a solopreneur level through a retailer, that has 10 locations plus, or brand personalities and so forth. It's really budget dependent. How much, and at the end of the day, it's like, how much hand holding do you need? Because maybe you can handle the customer service and you can handle the writing, you're the writer. Other clients are like, I don't want anything to do with the writing. It's way too much for me to even think about.
Right.
So like, how do I do that? So if you provide us content, like I think that your platforms are only going to be as strong as the relationship that you have to us, right? So you and I working together, the success comes from that relationship and how we fill in the gaps of where you need support. So if you are a good writer, but you're not that great at the creative and putting together some type of visual for it, well, that's where we can come in and support you. Or if you don't want to do any of that, well, we'll do the visual and the support. Like we'll do all of it for you and happily put our best practices.
And you
to
offer
work.
a lot of online, Zoom classes.
Yes.
You do a lot of education, some for free, some for not. But, all of them can help definitely an author start their platforms because, like you said, trying to set up your meta suite is a big, it shouldn't be a big deal, but it can be a big deal because you start to get into, changing things and you're like, what did I change now? And then, oh my gosh, did I just put an ad out that's every day for $15 a day for the rest of my life?
Instead of the lifetime budget, the daily budget. Oh my gosh, I just spent so much money. So yeah, you want to know what you're getting into for sure. There are... across the board, big companies, small companies, solopreneurs, like we've had to do a lot of fighting with Meta support team to try to make sure that.
Wait, can you call them?
I do have a direct line to the gods. They are located overseas. And so we absolutely have the support staff with us because
it's like trying to call Amazon for something you can't get through to anybody. I finally got a number, and I'm like, yes, I'm never losing this number.
You've got a direct line.
So. I know, I'll post content on my page, saying, just publish the poem, and then share the link to the poem. Yeah. But how do you encourage your followers to engage with you?
Yeah, so this is where we were talking back at the beginning. We've come a bit full circle back to the cheerleading prospects, right? Is that if you're looking for organic interaction, this is where you might be able to utilize, and we're just using Facebook as the example for now, but I would put all of your posts out into some of the local forums. Like wherever you are geographically is a great place to start, is what I feel like. Starting hyper local because you already have an established brand or you have familiarity with the people, the community, and how they like to interact with stuff. So if you start locally and then work your way out, it makes sense. It doesn't make sense to go start posting ads in California just because you want a national audience. I think it's more useful to start local, build a little bit of momentum, and then work your way into larger markets.
And personally for me, I will, I'll share certain things with certain groups. Yep. You know what I mean? So if I'm doing something with Band Productions and we're producing a show, I have reached out to forums about playwriters or actors or,
and where to go.
And placed it in those groups because I'm not going to place that in an editor's group.
Right. And you have to be mindful of where you're going with it because if you do it the same for every single one, you're coming off very spammy.
Yes.
And you don't want to. You're trying to build thought leadership, you're trying to build trustworthy behaviors, and you want to create a strong foundation for your brand, your book, your person.
It's interesting, something in, like, if I'm posting, like, I'm working on my novel now, and I'll go into one of the novel support, writers supporting writers, and I'll ask questions or for feedback, and, I'm looking for, advice.
Yes.
But when I'm posting it on my page, I'm not necessarily putting that question out there.
Right.
But I still am looking for that engagement with the audience of, not necessarily saying, do you like what I wrote? But, what is it thought, what kind of thoughts does this poem bring to you, or whatever it is?
And that's where the copy becomes really important, because you already have the creative, right? Maybe it is the link to your website, to that page that has the blog post that you want to get feedback on, or you want more people to read, you want more traffic, so on. So this is where you would diversify it a bit more. All right, so the writers group, you're asking for support, but the general public one, you're trying to create some type of urgency where you're providing them something. It's not about us. It's not, oh, do you like my writing? And we want to, but we're so vulnerable when we put ourselves out there. We want everybody to love it. It's not for everybody, and that's okay. But when you're trying to get that traction on it, it's about reframing how you can help them. Maybe the page was about like you have your pregnancy book, like it was a hard pregnancy and stuff, like you're putting out information about that, like, did you have a rough pregnancy? Like, this is for you, like this is a good read, this will help you through it, this will something about that, because then you're targeting those people and you're showing them what you can do to help them, not how you're, like, it's coming from my perspective. It has to be the other way around. Unfortunately, that's the world we live in.
And people like to talk about themselves. People like to feel like you're, that you are listening to them. So you're right. Like, thinking about the, Dear Baby Get Out, it's like, if I was to put out there, like, what are the things you did to prep to get ready for the baby's room?
And then you get more engagement there, because everybody has an opinion, and they want to share it.
And they want to share it. And the thing is, the more people share, the more we educate other people too.
Correct.
Like, I always say, every episode of the show has someone different on that's gonna teach somebody something, and it's like, someone might, put on that blog post of what did you do to prepare the baby's room, and they'll be like, oh, I put a case of water next to the baby's bed, and you might think, oh, that's a really good idea. Like, I never thought to do something like that. And, or other people might be like, doesn't matter to them.
Right. But you're always turning it around to put the shoe on the other foot, because it's for them. And even though it's for us too at the end of the day, like, but we're looking to do it for the right reasons. And I would avoid being like, I'm so excited to release my next book. Like, it's great, you're excited, but, like, I don't know.
You want to excite other people.
Yeah, it's about the people that are reading it.
Well, it's amazing how you've, transformed your life by taking that leap, because a lot of authors out there, we need to follow that. The goal is to just don't be afraid, jump in and, follow it, because you don't know where it's going to go. I mean, look, you worked at a radio station, next thing you know, you're owning Morning Bird Media, and now you're helping so many other people, whether it's manage their websites or their social media accounts. And I mean, we could have a whole nother show about how important websites are, that's for sure. But,
Come to me if you need one.
Yes, she can build you a website, which would be great. And I want to say, like, what is the best advice that you could give someone? I'm thinking you're gonna say build a website, but about being posting on social media. Like, is it about the consistency? Is it about the content, or is it about what do you think is the most valuable?
Very loaded question. Very loaded question. But if I were to say something for now, consistency is key, but it's not consistency based on the algorithm. It's consistency based on what you can provide as consistency, whatever that looks like. If it's once a week, if it's a blog post bi-weekly, if it is I'm gonna post one story to my Instagram account every day, like, decide what consistency is for you and follow through with it. It doesn't have to be, I have to post twice a day to feed the algorithm because I got to feed the monster.
Yeah, well, that's how you feel.
It's not that. Yeah, and you do feel that way, but you have to come up with something manageable for yourself before you can even consider what the algorithm needs.
All right,
what are you able
you definitely
to do?
just taught me a lesson, because I've been posting a little too frequently different stories that I've had published, and I'm thinking, maybe I'm just going to do it every Thursday, every Friday.
Right, because it's quality over quantity, so even if you do post one one thing, there's so much you can do with that one thing versus having a bunch of like half done thoughts. Like you have one thing that you put out that's good quality. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect but it's something that it took some time. You're proud of it. You followed the best practices. You've checklisted the things, and you can then take it and do organic outreach with it. You can then take it and boost it. You could then take it and put it into a paid ad. There's so many things that you can do with one piece of content and do them well rather than doing a bunch of things that are only like half done.
Oh, I love that. I really love that. Thank you so much. I mean, I could talk to you for hours, and we have at certain times. Can you please tell the audience where they can get more information about Morning Bird Media and whether they want to take a class with you, hire you to do everything that they can't do, and just all about you?
Oh my goodness. I know it's opposite of everything I've been telling you right now. It's not about me. But right now, if you want to make it about you, go to morningbird.media where you can find our website. We're on all of the social platforms, Facebook, Instagram, still on Twitter, X, definitely on LinkedIn. And you can email me at robyn@morningbird.media. And with any questions you may have, we do some quarterly workshops. We do a lot of community outreach with the career development centers. So that's where you can find us. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for coming in and taking the time to talk about this kind of simple but confusing topic.
My pleasure.
It's simple, everybody's social media, but it's confusing because how do you do it?
Right,
so thank you.
Thank
you. And I want to thank you, the studio audience, for listening into the show with Robyn Lee Miller and myself. And, every week we have different people on, so please tune in again next week. I learned something during the show, and I'm sure you did too. And I almost want to give you the writing assignment to write down what you learned. But the writing assignment is just a prompt, so don't fear it. So when the show is over, again, if you're new to the show, let me tell you what it's all about. You're going to sit down, take your pen to a paper, and you're going to start writing. And sometimes we, do story prompts. Every week is a little bit different. Today, I want you to take that pen, and bless you.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay. You're going to take your pen, and we're talking about social media posting and how important it is. And one of the things that I'm walking away with today is how you're going to make one kind of perfect piece, and don't procrastinate on making the perfect piece. But I want you, to put something out there, whether you're working on a project or whether you have a published book, put something out there that's going to engage your audience in a conversation. But now what I want you to do is make a list, because you know what you're trying to promote. I want you to make that list to think of 5 different ways that you could talk about that same promotion in a different way. Bring up a different subject. Like we said, in my Dear Baby Get Out book, I could say, how did you prepare your baby's room? Tell me something you did. And then kind of post that one day. Another day, say, you know what? I remember one of the crazy things that I did 2 days before I gave birth, and that was washed my siding with Lysol wipes, which I really did do, and it's in the book. But, it's like you're putting something like that on there to draw the attention to that book or to the story or the poem or the song that you've written. So just take the time, make a list of how you can share a certain post 5 different ways to engage audience. All right, so enjoy that writing prompt today. And again, thank you for tuning in to yWrite, and we will see you next time. Have a great day. Bye.